Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Housing. My name is Brennan Thomas. I am the co-host and economist at Reports on Housing alongside Stephen Thomas, chief economist and founder of this beautiful company. Today, we got some important and amazing stuff to go over, like economic news and statistics, closing out the year in a little bit of an odd fashion. Housing crash hysteria, delistings rising, the most concerns for 2026, how the struggling states will perform for next year, and more. But first, Stephen, like usual, what's been happening in your neck of the woods?
It's been, it was a bit busy. Of course, we had Thanksgiving holiday, and that was fun. I love the celebration. And then we went off to up by Fresno and Clovis, and our daughter ran in her last state championship race. And she did quite well. I think she got 20, I want to say somewhere like right around 23rd place. So that's pretty good for the state of California when there's so many people that are coming together. And very proud of her, proud of her career. It was like bittersweet because I and my wife, we absolutely love cross country. And this was the last time we got to see her in high school. Of course, she does have some offers for colleges that are looking at her. So, matter of fact, we're visiting one tomorrow. It'll be she's getting closer to running for a university, so that should be fun. And she's most likely going to stay local within SoCal, which makes it very easy for us to take a look at where she's going. And then we've got basketball for Zeke, and that's back on, and he has a game tonight. We're recording this on Friday, December 5th. So we're just busy between cross country and running is done. Everything's done except for Zeke is now in basketball now, and we're going to make our way towards all the holiday fun and Christmas in our house. That's a lot of fun, and that's to come, and we're doing all the planning for all that. So that's what's going on over here. How about you, young man? What's going on in your neck of the woods?
Nothing crazy. I mean, I've been joining you for presentations and presenting a little bit more, which is a lot of fun meeting some of our listeners and people that subscribe to us or just listen to us on YouTube. It's a lot of fun running into these people that recognize us and are able to learn about what's going to happen in 2026 with your housing forecast, which is coming up pretty soon on YouTube, which we'll make an announcement for, I'm sure, across the board so everyone will see. But other than that, marathon training is going well. I officially have a watch tan, and I think that makes me an official runner again. I haven't had that in a while, but and Stranger Things, because it was Thanksgiving when it came out. I watched it and it was so good, and I'm excited for the next little batch around Christmas. And oh boy, that show better finish strong. It's been a ride, couple of years. But speaking of Stranger Things, the real estate market, it kind of had a wonky couple of weeks, not what we were predicting. So what happened with supply, demand, and expected market time?
Yeah, strange. So last year, if everybody remembers, we have to dust off our memory banks. From the end of August to the start of October, rates were below 6.5%, between 6 and 6.5%. It was 45 glorious days, is what I called it. But then they popped up, and then they went above 7. And then they made their way down a little bit in the month of December. I think like right now is the upper 6s, but then it made its way back up above 7. Then it stayed there through all of January and part of February of this year. And this year has been a little bit different. We've slowly but surely made our way down from May to where we were at 7% to where we are now below 6.5%. It was September 3rd of this year that we made our way below 6.5, and we have not looked back. It has been the same. We are approaching, I think by the time we do this podcast, we're pretty close to 100 days when this is released next week. It'll be 100 days that we have been below 6.5%, between 6 and 6.5%. And this is a material shift in the marketplace. And this is our base case for where it's going to line up in the spring. But here's the thing, it never popped back up. And there weren't people that were feeling like this anxious, I better like get into real estate before rates go up too high. so we got a bit of last year at this time. We actually got a bit of an increase because it went up above 7, then came back down into the upper 6s, and then a whole bunch of people actually purchased year over year. This week we looked at this was just like last year. We had Thanksgiving, and then we had we were doing we had the first full week after Thanksgiving, and then we crunched the numbers after Thursday night. And here we are recording this on a Friday, December 5th. And so a year ago, when we did this, looked at the numbers, we had demand that was pretty resilient, and we had inventory that dropped faster than demand. This year, we actually have demand that came down more than inventory. Inventory didn't come down as much because we didn't have as much demand. And actually, in many markets now, year over year, demand is a little bit lighter than last year. It was exceeding last year for some time. So it's like one of those head scratchers where it didn't quite work out the way it did, but it also, because rates have been stuck, they've pretty much been stuck in this small channel. They have not changed. That the change is what sometimes motivates people to make a move. Now, a lot of them are waiting until rates come down further, but if they stay at these levels, these actually, when they meet with their lenders, they're going to see that look at where, if they met with their lender back in May at 7%, and now they meet with their lender, and now it's like at 6.25%. It is a material change in how much less the payment is, or how much more of a home they can afford because rates are lower. So that's why we're going to have a really nice spring. But right now, it's not meaning that we have a really strong end of 2025. We're waiting for more information to come out from the government, which we have not had a lot of information, which we'll get to in a second. But so if we have inventory levels that aren't coming down as fast as demand's coming down, the market's actually slowed. So that's kind of the opposite of what we thought was going to happen. But that's the only explanation is that there's been no volatility in rates, and it's not motivating anybody to do anything.
Well, for some of the listeners, I hope that they understand what's happening. But next week, there's a Federal Reserve meeting. It's actually going to be on the day that this is being released, where they're going to talk about what's happening with current Fed funds rate as well as projections. Why should some buyers or potential buyers not expect for rates to drop that same day? I mean, you and I, we've obviously talked about the difference plenty of times, but it's still good to reiterate just to make sure that everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, so typically what's been happening recently is rates drop to they actually come down a little bit on Monday. They come down a lot on Tuesday, and then they release on Wednesday. So what happens is typically what has historically been happening is on Tuesday we actually have our lowest rate, and then Jerome Powell speaks. Now, what happens is the mortgage rates are where they need to be based upon what they already know the Fed's going to do. Already priced in, even though the Fed, Jerome Powell said, I don't know if we'll do a rate cut in November or at the end of October, and then ended up doing a rate cut. Then he said, I don't know if we're going to do one in December, and then they're going to do one in December. It's like they don't like mortgage rates, 30-year mortgage rates for real estate to get anywhere close to 6% flat. And every time it makes its way down to that, he talks it up he'll do that quarter point rate cut next Wednesday and then basically that same day, he'll read the speech that's already been drafted by everybody. The Federal Reserve comes up with their speech. It's not just Jerome Powell. They all come up with what the talking points are. That's their agreed upon statement, and then he does a Q&A, and that he goes off script. Now, he intentionally, the way that he does it, he talks about, there was a lot of debate. We didn't quite know what to do. We don't think that we're going to be doing anything anytime soon unless we have to, but we're going to have to watch the data. He'll say the same thing he does every single time, and you can actually watch rates rise as he's talking because he's making it sound like they're not going to be doing any more rate cuts down the road is kind of the way he makes it seem. And a lot of people buy it, and you actually see there's not that big of an appetite for bonds, 10-year treasuries, as well as mortgage-backed securities while Jerome Powell is speaking. And there's a follow through the second day, which will be next Thursday. And from Wednesday to Thursday, what's been happening is it goes up a quarter of a point. And that started last year in September of last year, where they cut it by a half a point, and he was so hawkish in his speech. Even though they did a half point rate cut, he said, "We're late, but we're not going to do it again," type of thing. Even though he did it 2 more times, but as a result of that, the markets believed it, and the economic numbers came out that were more resilient. And we watched rates go from 6.1% the day before they cut it by a half percent, the Federal Reserve. And I say it's actually it was unanimous, and that meant 12 out of 12 voted for it. That you have to have a majority, 7 out of the 12. So all 12 voted for this thing. It went down a half point rate cut, but because he was so hawkish, we watched rates actually rise all the way, and then the numbers are so resilient, above 7% in October of last year. So, but this time we don't have the resilience in the economic numbers. So even though he talks up rates, then the numbers come out and it softens again. But keep in mind, we had this ridiculous government shutdown that was ridiculous because we didn't get our numbers. We are not politicians. We don't like politics. We like economics. And we did not get our numbers for, it was 42 days? I can't remember. I think that's what it was, that the government shutdown. And then as a result, we're still not even really getting the numbers from the government shutdown time period. And we're not going to get them until a week after the Fed meets. We'll get some jobs numbers. And I don't even quite trust the data completely right now. Anyways, not that they're doing anything intentionally. It's just that they haven't had long enough where they started opening up the week before Thanksgiving. Then we had a Thanksgiving week. So how much can they really get done? And so this is the first full week that they're back. And then we're going to blow into the holidays. So I just don't think they have adequate amount of time to put everything together and get all the survey results back, so that the survey results will be really low. So they're going to be doing some what they call linear regression, and then that opens the door for error and revisions down the road. It's not anything political. It's just the way the system works with so few surveys that are turned in. So I don't imagine we're going to get really accurate jobs report until we get to January, and not even the first Friday in January, because they never deliver one the first Friday in January because it's a new year and it's all the holidays. They wait till the second week of January. So we're going to have to wait till the second week of January, and that's when all the data will start to play out and normalize. And that's when I think that we're going to see some breakage and bring rates down a little bit further. And that is going to be what instigates even more buyer transactions and demand down the road. So we haven't had a whole heck of a lot as far as numbers are concerned. We had an initial unemployment claims that came out this week, and it was the lowest since 2022. Don't quite understand that completely. It's like this might be just one off, and the next week it could be a lot higher. And maybe part of it that was government workers went back to work. There was different explanations for it, but it didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. The long-term unemployment claims are actually at very high levels. They remain at high levels, and they'll continue to be an issue probably going forward. So because we're watching these ADP numbers, they've been really negative. They have a 4-week moving average, and they keep on releasing them, and they're more and more negative, showing a lot of job loss. ADP is a payroll service that only has a segment of the overall of all the firms that are across the United States. They just have a segment. They're a private sector, payroll service that they can, and they do a lot, but they're not everybody, so that they can kind of see what's going on. And there are other reports out there too. The Challenger report's another one. There are other reports that are showing that the numbers for November were really low, negative, and that when November finally does get released, it should show a big negative. We'll see, because a lot of this stuff gets revised, like I said, down the road, but these revisions are what's going to manipulate the market, especially come into 2026. We can get a really high number for November at first, initially, the week after the Fed meets, but then down the road, those will be revised, and those could be the impetus to rates coming down even more. So we're just going to be looking at all the numbers. Thankfully, we have all the numbers coming back, and right now we're still looking to the private sector, but we'll be looking at more of the public stuff, because the government stuff has pretty much everything.
All right, well, let's jump right into it and talk about the recent call for prices to crash. House prices, let me say. Melody Wright hopped on to the podcast Thoughtful Money Podcast, which is a very large podcast. They're pretty Amazing. And mention that within months from now, home prices might correct to the point where they match the median household income. In 2024, according to data from the US Census, that median was $83,730. So, Steve, I will just leave the floor to you to speak on this with no questions from me. I know you watched the whole video, so what were your takeaways?
I did not. I did not finish the entire video. I've had to do it in segments. I did a 10-minute segment, couldn't stomach anymore. I was beginning to lose my lunch. Then I listened to another 10-minute piece of it. This thing's an hour and like 10, 20 minutes long. I think I'm to about the 45-minute mark, but it's taken me like 4 days to make my way through it. Still not finished. I can't sit down for a long period of time and listen to it because I get too antsy and I actually want to comment and things like that. I don't typically listen to doomers and gloomers, but every once in a while I want to get on just to hear what the recent takes are. And there are a couple of people that are out there that do this. You would know if you are plugged into any kind of doomer loop where you Googled housing crash coming out and that's what you want. If that's what you want, that's what you're going to be fed. That's the way that our social medias, platforms, and everything works. So that they're just going to give you what you want to hear. It's kind of, if you want politics, certain kind of politics of flavor, you'll get that flavor of politics. Just the same thing as if you want some economic downturn things to happen, those are exactly what you're going to get fed. So if you want a housing market crash, that's what you're getting fed, and you will be coming across this Melody Wright. Now, Melody Wright, she is a very shrewd, smart gal, and her background is she actually has a BA in English and Russian, and then she has a doctorate in English. She got her master's in literature, and then she got her master's, another master's in business project management. She does not have the background of an economist. She and if she properly looked at economics, she would know that you cannot stick at all to any kind of a narrative. You have to have models and systems. You have to have everything that you're looking at, all the different parts that go into it before you even call any kind of a housing crash. We saw the signs of the Great Recession starting in the fall of 2005. The first blip was way too many homes all of a sudden coming on the market. And they continue to stagnate, and at the same time saw a drop in demand. And then if you watch delinquency rates, they were already going through the roof, where you started to see initial delinquency rates. And we have nothing of that. We had a lot of bad lending products and things like that you were able to see everything, not one little piece where it was going to be house of cards. A lot of people said it was too expensive. That does not mean that is going to instigate prices that plunge. We've talked about it before. You have to have many different factors. And she keeps on bringing up things where she hears things on the streets. Now, when she's talking about this 83,730, this revision, it's where there's a revision to the where it goes back to the line, and what she's saying is that it's got to come back down to make more sense for affordability. And there are three different factors. It's either price, income, or rates. And so her argument is, well, it's got to be it's got to be price comes back down for it to make sense. But that's not how it works. Unfortunately, we're just stuck in a time where things are very, very expensive, and we're not even the most expensive as far as price per square foot or anything like that, or the values of homes around the world. Canada's way more expensive than it is here, and it's been that way for a long time compared to the United States. A lot of European countries a lot more expensive than it is in the United States. Feels expensive because we used to be able, we built like crazy. People said we underbuilt, but we still had the capacity to build compared to other areas where values have come up because they have not done a lot of building. They still continue to not do a lot of building, and they don't have a lot of places to build, and they don't. And as a result, there's not enough inventory, and values have stuck. So we have the same issue right now. We still don't have enough inventory. So there's not going to be this reversion to the median, and that's what she's basically saying is going to happen. It's not going to happen, and that's just not how good economics works. She's basically she called for a 50% reduction in prices worse than the Great Recession, which is just absolutely blows my mind. Makes no sense. I go to toe with her all day long because I can continue to refute almost everything she says. Matter of fact, when she said the 50%, she made up the number. She just said it out loud. And then while she was saying it, she actually looked up and to the right. And when you do that, it's actually storytelling. I looked it up just to see, gosh, why did she do that? Why did she look up and to the right? And when I did the research has found that typically means that you're going to your side of your brain where you're making up a story type of thing, being creative. So she was creatively coming up with 500,000, and she actually backtracked that 50% off, 50% plunge, and she backtracked that and said, I think she said 37% after that. So she just made up a number and then made up another number, and it was just off the cuff. And that's basically, she does not have definitive sound models that she follows where she could say precisely where it's going to go and why it's going to be this 50%. And nothing is a round number anyways. That's why I think she came up with 50 and said, well, that's not going to sound very good. Let's make it like 37 or something like that. So you have to be very, very careful to who you listen to, the credentials that they have, and what they've been doing. Like people have said in our feed that you didn't see the great financial crisis coming. And I said, I did. How do they know? Did they know me back in 2005 when I was tracking it? I started tracking the housing market in 2004, and you could see how low the inventory was. It wasn't even as low as where we are at all, by any stretch of the imagination. But it made its way all the way up to 3 million homes, and I knew almost 3 million. I knew there was a problem. And then we made our way up to 4 million in 06, 07, 08. We have 1,540,000 homes as of October, and we've already peaked out. It's coming down, and it's going to really come down for November and December. We are so far from that 4 million homes on the market. We do not have a glut of homes. We do not have a delinquency problem. She was talking about FHA and stuff like that. I can give you the actual numbers of FHA foreclosures we're going to have next year. And she just talks about the number of foreclosures that from FHA. It's unbelievable where it's at right now. But you got to look at it in time and context. Her context is not that long. You got to go context back for decades to understand where things go. And they just don't do that because it doesn't support their ridiculous narrative. And she's said it. In 2 years ago, she talked about this being worse than the great financial crisis, and it's going to be also said last year that it's going to be a bloodbath. This year, there's no bloodbath. There are specific markets that she brings up, but that's a totally different story as far as those specific markets are. Anybody can bring up a specific market. There's a reason why that they've come down, but overall, across the United States, that's not near the flavor, and it's not going to be the flavor of any kind of a potential downturn down the road. It's not going to be one in real estate. It will be outside of real estate.
Yes. Well, it's always important to do the homework. You can listen to anyone, you could read anything, but to understand context and to actually read about it, understand where they're coming from, then you can come to your own argument. Then you can come to your own opinion and say, okay, maybe X, Y, and Z is wrong. But for this reason, we just needed to share that because I somehow heard it at like a dinner recently, and I know I've seen it all across different media platforms. I've seen it on YouTube. It's just out of hand. So context is key. And on that note, CNBC wrote an article saying sellers are taking their homes off the market at the fastest pace in nearly a decade. So why does context matter with this headline, and how does it contribute to homes not crashing?
Yeah, so this is a Redfin statistic. And you have to take Redfin's statistics with a grain of salt because their statistics start in 2013. So that like I said, context. When you only go back to 2013, you have a lot to go by, but you don't have the context of even going back further and being able to see the worst possible scenario in the Great Recession. So context is king. As a matter of fact, they've already talked about the vast number of buyers over the number of sellers. The sellers versus buyers. There's this big giant differential, and it's the biggest of all time. Also back to 2013. At the same time, even though that's being stated, we've actually had values that have stabilized and are starting to go back up now. And the reason they're going back up is because we have rates that are below 6.5%. And we've done it in many of our broadcasts for our presentations where we talk about that supply and demand scale. And what's happened over the last couple of years is we've had a lot more supply come on and demand hasn't changed. Well, in 2023, we had almost very little supply come on the market because everybody had a low interest rate and people were staying home. We call it hunkering down. And as a result, we had inventory that was really low in 2023 and demand was really low, but the inventory story was even lower than demand. And then what we had were values actually going up and stabilizing in 2023, even though we had rates that jumped from 3.25% in 2022 all the way up to 7.37% in October of 2022. So we had these much higher rate environment where it made it very, very unaffordable to purchase, yet we still had buyers purchasing because demand had dropped considerably, but so did inventory levels. And inventory levels were so low compared to demand that values went up. And in 2024, we had more homes come on the market. More sellers finally said, yeah, you know what, I'll go ahead and place my home on the market. But demand didn't change. So now we built an inventory so that scale of supply and demand, we started adding more on the supply side. And yet still we had overall values going up. Now in 2025, this year, we've had even more supply come on than 2024 and 2023, a lot more than 2023. And all of a sudden, supply really started to rise this year with similar demand year over year. So if we had the same demand, yet a lot more inventory, now the scale started to tilt in the favor of buyers until we had rates come down below 6.5%. And that created a much more sticky situation because now you have a little bit more demand and it's a little bit more favorable for buyers to purchase it. And that's why we had a stabilization in pricing. And that is why we anticipate going out into 2026. We actually, with interest rates below 6.5%, it's going to be a lot stronger than what many people are anticipating. So this whole delisting thing is for the following reason. This is just a long way. I wanted to paint the proper picture for where we're really at. The delisting is there are a number of homeowners that came on in 2025 that languished on the market, accumulated because demand was the same over the last 3 years. So there were a lot of people that came on, but guess what? What we lack in this current real estate market that we're in compared to the Great Recession is we don't have that many sellers that really have to move. If you don't have to move, because we had foreclosures and short sales who absolutely had to, everybody had to move. Either they took care of it as a short sell, but if they didn't take it as a short sale, the bank would still get it back. So short sales and banks were in charge of, for a while, 2/3 of all transactions for a little bit of time. And so you had so many people that had to move through short sales or foreclosures or job loss. And we talk about the jobs where it's at right now. We are not going into that job loss that we had during the Great Recession. That's not going to happen. But if the job market were to crack a little bit and we would see more job loss, nothing like the Great Recession, we would see rates that come down, and those rates would ignite the remaining. Most everybody will be gainfully employed. Unemployment increasing a little bit more will actually just increase it will increase the number of people that are jobless, but there will be plenty of people that will be gainfully employed that have been waiting to purchase, and rates will come down because of that, and then all of a sudden it'll be off to the races. So that's just the story. The delisting is I don't really have to sell. So I was unable to get my price, and a lot of people, they were not priced well, and they talk about price reductions. There's price reductions all across the United States. The biggest price reductions in a long time. That's the other story. The biggest price reductions in all time just means that they were overpriced a lot. And when I talk to real estate agents all over the place, they say, when I ask anybody overpriced, and we have a sign writer that says overpriced with an exclamation point on the end of it, it's because so many homeowners are not in touch with the reality of where their true market value is, and they start off overpriced because of negotiations. I've even heard real estate agents say, yeah, I price a lot of my properties. I have to price in extra for negotiations. I don't even understand that. I don't. I just am really good at if I have somebody that is bringing in an offer and they're going to bring an offer, I would tell them, look, we're priced right. So any of this lowball offer, if you want this big reduction, it's not going to happen. I would sharpen your pencil because I am priced right. That's how I would communicate it, because you're going to gain offers if you're priced right. That's really what it's about. But starting off overpriced, there's a big, giant percentage chance that you're going to have to either reduce or delist. And we're at the end of the year. This is when delisting is king. And when is the king of all months? What is the number one month for delisting? The month of December. And that is where we're at right now. So delisting is the story of this month. And that happens every single year. It is the month, December. And this year, it's even more because we have a ton of homeowners and sellers that are on the market right now that are saying, I want to go enjoy the holidays. I didn't really have to sell. Psych. And then they delist. It used to be called expired, canceled, withdrawn, but now it's called delisted. It's a much more lovely term because we're delisting and we will come on at a later date, probably this spring. Sounds more optimistic.
To wrap up today's episode, I just want to talk about 2026. So, for the areas that have struggled in 2025, what do you expect happening next year, like the South and the West? And then, what are some of your concerns for real estate in 2026?
So, along the it's just going to change a little bit. You can actually see it. Zillow has a great forecast. You can go to Zillow data research, and you'll go to this page where they give you for anybody for free. I think it's a great service because so many agents say that they've taken advantage of us, Zillow. But however, they provide this data for free, and you can do it by the zip code, and you can see where projected where interest where values are headed for all these zip codes, cities, in even across the United States, counties. You can see where it is, and for a lot of the country, it is positive for most of the country. As a matter of fact, they say year over year that we should be up like 1.5% or something like that. So not a gigantic upward swing, however, still positive. And that will totally be a different story if we get rates at 6.0%. If it goes below 6.0%, 1.5 will not be accurate. It will be much stronger than that. And but there are some areas that have some concern. It's where there are more FHA loans. And the true story of FHA is we did the analysis. We're going to go from 120,000 foreclosures to 180,000 FHA foreclosures next year. That is a big jump, and that is because the moratorium has ended. And so it will be a gigantic jump. However, 180,000 sprinkled over the entire country over the year is not going to be a big deal. But there are some areas that have more FHA loans and a lot more vulnerability because FHA loans only require 3.5% down. So, and if you're only putting 3.5% down, you don't have a lot of skin in the game. And if you have to all of a sudden sell, or if they also allow people with more inferior credit to purchase properties. So if they're putting 3.5% down, they have a little bit more inferior credit, and then they racked up too much of a credit card bill and they can't afford their house and all that stuff. And peace, they leave their house. They're either going to become a short seller or foreclosure because they don't have enough equity in their house with just 3.5% down and values not going crazy. They're kind of been flat for them to even be able to sell. So that's where the vulnerability comes in. That is not a big segment in the United States. The vast majority, 40% of everybody across the United States owns their home free and clear. 2/3 of the United States either owns their home free and clear or has 50% plus equity. That does not sound like, and then the rest of the third has less than 50% equity. The numbers of people that that do not have enough equity to sell their home is just a sliver. It's not enough. There will be some vulnerability. We will see some foreclosures. It will not be anything like the Great Recession. It's just going to be a few more. So those areas are like Louisiana, Mississippi. There's some around that Sun Belt. It's no longer going to be Florida. I think there's a couple of counties now Florida that will be hit negative year over year when you look at it. However, the vast majority of Florida is going to be positive. So it's no longer it's no longer ground zero. There's some other areas that are having some problems, and it's not going to be Texas. Is not going to be this gigantic drop like it was before. It's going to be less of a drop and fewer of the metros within Texas. So it's now changing to other parts of the country that have the vulnerability, but the vast majority of the United States will be positive. So you just have to take everything with a grain of salt, because guess where all these doomers are going to go? They'll actually fly in an airplane because everybody's clicks pay for them to get on an airplane, go rent a nice hotel, eat nice out, and they're dining with the best of them, and they're put their head down on the pillow knowing that they're spewing out the most negative stuff that's steering everybody in the wrong direction for year after year. But they're able to do all this stuff for fun, and they're going to go to ground zero. Don't worry, they'll be in Louisiana and Mississippi next year talking about, look, now it's spread to Louisiana and Mississippi. That's coming. I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to not click on it, because I don't want to pay for him to fly over there or her to fly over there. That's just not the way it's going to happen. So that's basically how it's going to play out next year, and it's going to be more of the same. And a lot of people will click on it because they can't wait to get in, because they missed their opportunity and they want in. The only way that they think they can get in is with a crash in prices. And unfortunately, if they did their math, they can get in when rates come down enough. And if the job market breaks and we get into the fives, shoot, look out, cook out. There's going to be a lot of people participating then.
Well, we'll be on the lookout for all the different headlines, I'm sure, during 2026 to talk about it here and on your housing debrief. But thank you, everyone, again, for tuning into another episode of Let's Talk Housing. As usual, if you want to learn more about what's going on in real estate, the economy, anything like that, go check out our YouTube. Same title, it's Reports on Housing. And then you could also go subscribe today at reportsonhousing.com. Please leave us a good review. We'd greatly appreciate it. Just help us with the algorithm. And then if you have any questions at all, you can feel free to leave it anywhere across our social media platforms, or you can even email us. We will take them in and put it on here. So we'll see you very soon, and have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.